The election day, a day that should make every citizen proud. You can make your own voice heard by electing a government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Wherever you fall on the political spectrum, you, dear citizen, get the right to choose. If you think taxes are too high, vote. If you think they are too low, vote. If you think that our country should be the one to lead the world towards a brighter future, vote. If you want to make a change, vote. Ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, dear opponents, good morning. Today, my teammates and I are defending the bright side and standing for the beauty of democracy, for the most powerful instrument ever devised by man for breaking down injustice, which is none other than the vote. And being this debate's prime minister, I find it my duty to set the grounds for a fair debate far from all ambiguity. And with that being said, a certain definition imposes itself upon us. So, according to the Oxford Dictionary, a vote is a formal indication of a choice between two or more candidates or courses of action. And it can also be defined as the right to cast a choice in an election. It goes without a saying that democracy provides an environment that respects humans' rights and fundamental freedoms, and in which the free will of people, meaning the freedom of speech, Yes?
You said that if you think the taxes are high, then vote. Well, what if none of the candidates agree with lowering the taxes? Then who am I going to vote for? For the one who seems less worse? For the one who seems kind of good?
Okay, if you don't like any of the candidates, I think instead of not voting as a sign of disagreement, you can simply cast a blank vote, which would represent a more effective sign of protest. Thank you for your interest. So, as I said, democracy provides an environment that respects humans' rights and their freedoms, and in which the freedom of speech is exercised. And voting is the heart of this democracy. So the moment you choose not to vote, you kill this democracy. The moment you choose not to vote, you are stating that you no longer have faith in the democratic process. And by so, you no longer have the right to express your opinion or to complain and criticize the government's work, because you killed the only system that gives you the right to do so, which is democracy. So think about it. Not voting isn't actually a way to show your disapproval, because if you do not vote, no matter what else you say, you can protest until the sky turns yellow. But for politicians, you will only be a person who didn't vote, so their opinion doesn't matter anymore. And pardon me, but they're absolutely right, because you were the person who excluded himself from the political radar. So why should any politician care about your opinion and give about the change you want? On the other hand, you can vote for less popular party candidates, which would be a more efficient way of showing your disagreement. And by voting for these people, yes, maybe it will take a few years for them to actually get relevant and win the elections, but by voting for them, you, dear citizen, get the attention of the media. And as we say, better later than never. Sorry. Dear opponents and ladies and gentlemen, the process, the election, is happening whether you want it or not. Okay? So just because you don't find either of the candidates likable, or you hate the involvement of money in politics, doesn't make not voting your best alternative. And I like to think of it this way. The whole, I'm not voting. Okay. Okay, first of all, I find it, please listen to me, I'm talking. I find it really weird how you're talking about fundamental freedom when not voting itself is a fundamental freedom. How irrelevant indeed. Anyways, Axel Brodio's Domino and her social exclusion concept might be the perfect ideology thesis to approach my political helplessness. For some people, this political exclusion might be decrypting to the depths of this horrid fundamental thesis. Why? Because just like our society, social exclusion might be manifesting in some way that freedom might be investing itself in one strong yet deteriorating emotion. Ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens, dear government and honorable jury,
Every time that I stand behind this podium, this hypnotic, enthralling sensation reinstates itself in me as if it were the first time that I ever felt this sane and the first time that I ever felt this free. Listen. Citizens are not subjects. We ask people to vote under reviews. We ask people to make choices, but under pressure we ask people to talk, but not too much. We ask people to put in the bare minimum average amount of effort, all in the same quest towards a path of change that seems to have fled the road or gone off an edge, or God knows what happened to it. I think that you should tell me what happened to it. I find it a paradox, really, who gives and who takes rights away. I have heard this over and over and over again from people who are so mired in the system that they tend to refuse to actually accept that it is broken. Therefore, people do not want to vote anymore. Actually, admitting that the whole policy is a scam is a tough pill to swallow. It hits where it hurts, but that same weakness is what's giving the system this immaculate strength over us. It's like a broken relationship that you keep investing attempts and expecting that this time it would be better, when all you're doing is repeating yourself over and over and over into a continuous loop of being broken and expecting this time that things would be different when you're just playing an old orchestrion, playing the same old, unyielding and horrible lullaby. I think it's actually irrelevant. I think it's actually stupid how you would actually believe that policy is not a right of everyone. You were born into this system. You did not vote yourself in, and you cannot vote yourself out. Actually, criticizing, if you think that it is legitimate to criticize after voting for which person gets to take the face of the legacy of who's going to rob you, I surely do not understand why it would trigger you that someone who is against you in the first place does not get the right to say exactly what they want about why the system is broken. Like tax money. If you are voting, then good for you. Take a stand. It would be our pleasure. That is your freedom of right. But you are not paying anybody's income taxes. You are not handling anybody's account freezes. And you are not dealing with anybody's fine penalties and heavy fines. So if you are voting, and if you're not voting, that would be your choice as well, then you are against what the tax money is used for. Yet, what do? You stand up, you pay, you ruffle, anger so much, anger, agony turning into evaluation, then turning into criticism. And I think that after encountering so many times what your thoughts may be when you do get up here, I have come to realize that some people actually want to pay themselves out of the democracy. People don't really care where the tax money is going for. They're thinking that maybe it's paving roads, or maybe just building schools, or maybe buying vitamins for politicians so they don't fall asleep in political conventions, or maybe just buying them enough sweets not to fall asleep and not to steal. But what is it really? If you are against it, then I think that it's really stupid that you wouldn't think that it's legitimate. Thank you.
Dear Prime Minister, saying too much doesn't mean that you're saying too good, and you have no right to call us stupid or whatever. And then it was clear as clear as it was. It was your lack of consistent arguments that you're trying to obtain the audience attention just by their emotions. Anyways, ladies and gentlemen, members of the jury, dear opponents, admirable audience, good morning. Never will I have the words nor the right expressions to express how happy, glad, and honored I am to be able to stand right here and today in front of you in order to debate such topic. And as you can see, my team and I truly and strongly believe that what we are defending is true. But before we start our actual argumentation, I want you, dear audience, to allow me to be the light that will enlighten your day and give you more precise knowledge. So first of all, starting with what the Governor Biswabusan Harishandan has said, that those who do not vote have no more right to claim fundamental rights given by the Constitution and criticize the policies of the elected government. Participating in the 10th National Voters' Day celebrations, the Governor in the day celebration, it described the right to vote as the most important fundamental right. I'll ask my dear members of the opposition to listen carefully to what I'm about to say. Maybe just then maybe, hopefully, you'll get to share some common sense that all of us have. Anyways, listen, one of the things that a citizen must do is stand in the line and queue and vote on the day of the elections. Either way, he has no actual right to call himself a citizen anymore. The governor also said that one should understand that not voting, that the ones who don't vote cannot find fault with the government, and which may not measure up their expectations. Yes.
Since when for you is voting a must? Since it has been for multiple years mostly a freedom of right, and also we did not intend to call you stupid or any sort of way. What we really tried to get the message across is your position as well as your opinion, and not only that, it's also the position you are constantly trying to defend is wrong. So you are saying that freedom of speech is some sort of right, but then it's a must for us to vote. I don't get it. Thank you.
Yes, I'm about to answer your question right here in my intervention. Please listen carefully. Anyways, what was I saying? That those who do not vote cannot fight with the government, and which may not measure up in ensuring those, which may not measure up in ensuring those fundamental rights are respected. But apparently, our dear members of the opposition doesn't only find these words strange to them, but they also find them hard to understand, sadly. Come and stand in line and vote. It is your duty to vote. It is your duty to protect democracy. And citizens should not forget this, as it was also mentioned. And you dare to tell me that people who don't vote have the actual right to criticize the government's policy? Sorry to laugh, pardon me for laughing at this clear nonsense, and sorry to break your little bubble, but I'm pretty sure that you guys are not even convinced with what you're defending. So with that being said, I'm pretty sure that you guys are the kind of people who would judge the others just because they want to avoid non-valid reasons. To sum up, here's a little advice for me to you, dear opponents. Don't be so pessimistic. Don't be so pessimistic, thinking that there aren't people anymore who will change our beloved country. Do not generalize, please. And as we say, so with voting, there are plenty of people that are seeking to change and make everything better. And as François Guizot said, the world belongs to optimists. Pessimists are only spectators. And I've come out with the conclusion that you are the spectators today. Thank you.
First of all, you are just as rude as the government by not accepting the POI of the Prime Minister. And then you didn't even precise and show the difference between not voting and voting blank, as you have said, and I will show that. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we tomorrow will have the power to decide who will represent us in the parliament, who will take decisions in our name and in our place. Now, the question is, who would you like that to be? Somebody smart, responsible, strong, whose plan is amazing, who has a project, a strong one, with lots of knowledge. Yes, that's what I would like. But then, what if none of the candidates is like that? What if all of them are just bad and worse? And us as citizens, we do not have to choose between the worst and the lesser evil. Now, sometimes the only choice we have is to not vote at all. Now, voting is a choice. It's a stand, it's an opinion, it's a way to say no to the candidates, it's a way to say no. Yes, please.
I think you didn't hear us carefully because my friend has already responded to his POI, and I wish the way you criticize, you can hear us well, because as I think you criticize a lot, so please hear us a little bit. Thank you.
We do, and you haven't answered the POI of the Prime Minister, but you have answered the POI of the opposition whip. I was saying, not voting at all is a way to show that you are against the candidates and that you are against and you are unsatisfied by the system. It's a strong silence. It's the power of silence. It's a silent scream for help and for actions, and yet the only action that is done is denying it, is not hearing it and acting deaf and denying its existence. And then we say, oh, if you don't vote, then you don't care about your country. If you don't vote, then you don't want to participate in the politics. That's not true. And then at the same time, not voting is equivalent to voting blank. Do you know why? Because when you vote blank, do you know what happens to that vote? They take that paper, they look at it, boom, they throw it in the bin. They do nothing with it. They don't count it. They do nothing with it. So when you vote blank, you're not voting. So let's just put that in position and have less ambiguity in this debate. So at the end of the day, you find out that the elections are just a protocol, are just a theatrical scene in a political play to complete a scheme of illusion of a democracy when it doesn't exist. Now, instead of being here debating about how voting blank should be accounted and should be accounted for, and that it's not the majority within the ones who vote, who should count, but rather the majority of the citizens of age that should matter. Instead of being here debating that, here we are debating about how when you choose not to practice a right, you should be deprived of another one. That just goes along the line with the proposed surrender, isn't totally illogical. It's just like the right of eating. You have the right to eat, that's primal, we all know that. But when you choose not to eat, which is solely your right, then you know what? If you choose not to eat, then you should be deprived of your right to live. Does that make sense to you? That doesn't make sense to me. Because, yeah, and so we are crystal clear, voting is a right, freedom of speech is your right too, and that is according to the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, Article 21, and I read it. Everyone has the right to take part in the government of his country directly or through fully chosen representatives. And the third one, the will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. This will shall be expressed in periodic and genuine elections, which shall be by universal and equal suffrage. Thank you.
Dear members of the opposition, your arguments have no sense. They are just superficial. The comedy you're playing in front of the public don't make them deeper or real. And when you're talking about food, I think that you're just hungry. That's why you're talking about it. Don't compare it to voting, please. Since I can remember, our government has never done a very good job. When we ask for better equipments in our cities, the government never provides them for us. When we ask for better hospitals and totally free medical charges, the government never provides them for us. When we ask where the money of our taxes goes, the government never gives us an answer. Our country, in terms of politics, is clearly... Yes?
Thank you. First of all, our arguments are not senseless, and if you have a bit of logic, you would understand that. And are you saying that fundamental rights of voting and freedom of speech are senseless? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm meaning that you're trying to waste my time to not let me finish my speech. So please don't take POI to say something without sense. Please. I continue. Our country, in terms of politics, please. Our country, in terms of politics, is clearly full of problems. There's a lot to criticize. But can't we do anything about it? Well, first, we can assume that only criticizing won't help. Real solution that each person can do is either becoming a politician, and that answer to your question when there is no good politician or no good choice, either becoming a politician trying to reach a high rank in the government, and I'm sure that a lot of people here can become successful politicians. Or, secondly, by voting and taking advantage of the right that our democratic country gives us to choose our leaders. We sometimes underestimate the power that voting gives us. It actually gives you the option to become a writer of the story of your nation, while only criticizing only makes the person a reader of that story, giving a meaningless opinion that nobody cares about. Voting is a way of making big changes, That cannot be done with only criticizing. Thus, criticizing, evaluating the government's work without voting is useless. I remember when I was a kid, I don't know if it was the same for you, but I used to hate the world of politics. I found it stupid how people would fight because they have different opinions and all, and how each person would give a different statement about the same government. And actually this has a cause. Research published in the magazine The Guardian shows that people who talk and complain about politics without voting are more likely to understand less about these politics and to give false statements. That's because people who vote actually make searches and learn to analyze political decisions. Therefore, criticizing and evaluating the government's work without voting isn't only useless, it also makes people propagate stupidity. Dear members of the opposition, there's clearly an infinity of things people who don't vote can do. But criticizing and evaluating the government's work isn't one of them. Thank you.
You see, we have this problem in Morocco because when people make weird hand gestures or use different tones of their voice, they think that they are making sense, but really they're just getting away because they don't have any actual arguments. Well, you also spoke about how it's my job to keep democracy as a citizen, and well, it's also the government's job to keep me safe, and if that isn't being done, I will choose not to vote as a right. Well, now, personal freedom. Freedom of speech. I'm sure you've heard of it before. You spoke about it, we spoke about it, yet you still don't seem to get it. Freedom of speech is actually when you have the right to express yourself how you like and speak your mind however you like and criticize. Like criticizing the government's work. Yay, now you get it. Well, that's just a definition. Now let's move on. If I choose not to vote, it's because I lost faith and trust in all political parties. Or maybe it's because none of them are up to my liking. Or I don't see the point in voting since they all are the same, meaning I do not see how any of them... Yes?
Well, first, you don't have the right. Who are you to judge my hand gesture? Maybe I have a problem that I don't know. And secondly, we answered to all your arguments, and plus you are the one making the comedy. And as I said, we answered to all your arguments. We said that if you don't like the politicians, the actual politicians, then become a politician and change things. If you think that you're better than us.
Wow. Honestly, I don't see the point in. You see, like on the stage right now, we both have different opinions. Yet, still I will defend to the death your right to express them. You see, you're criticizing me, but you didn't vote for me to be up here on this podium defending the opposite of what you're saying. Yet, I still give you the right to give your opinion and your point of view on what I'm saying, and I will not stop you from that right. Well, I would rather not vote and contribute to my country rather than making a horrific decision and a horrible mistake which will obviously send us to our doom. So me, the beautiful and amazing citizen that I am in this amazing country, I have the right to speak up and say my point of view on this government and these representatives who are making decisions and saying stuff on my behalf because it affects me, it affects my life, it's my country, it affects my family, it affects my job, my state of life, how I think and even how I pursue my dreams in certain times. So I would rather stand up and rather than being controlled, and I would rather say what's on my mind using that freedom of speech that I spoke about in the beginning. And not just because I do not have the same opinion as you, I should stop talking, or just because the government doesn't want to hear my different opinion, I shall stop talking. Because not evaluating is ignorance. Not evaluating is ignorance. Voting for whoever seems less worse is ignorance, and counting till 10 as voting is actually stupidity. So, me not voting is expressing my opinion of dislike or insatisfaction. So, as Martin Luther King Jr. once said, you see, in all the world, there's nothing more absurd than sincere
ignorance and consciousness stupidity. And the highest form of ignorance is when you reject something you do not know anything about. And in your case, dear opponents, it's your rejection of personal freedom and freedom of speech. Thank you.
First of all, leader of opposition, before learning how to criticize, I may counsel you to learn how to attack politely. And as I can see, you know very well how to criticize. Because Barclay, you have this much experience, then nominate yourself and let us see what you're going to do. But do not forget, you criticize without voting. So we'll do the same thing, and you will stay as you are. No president, no nothing. So where is benefits? I don't see them. Call me when you see them. Well, how can you come and criticize the government and its policy and she already give you the right to vote? Even given this right is not an easy thing. This right is the most important fundamental right and the most potent weapon in the hands of people. Actually, this right means that here you are the citizen, choose by yourself who's going to represent you and fight for your rights. So if it didn't go well at the end, do not come and So if it didn't go at the end, you'll be aware that you are the one who chose that person. It's like putting you in front of your responsibilities. So at the end, don't come and criticize what you've chosen. And here, we're talking if you had voted, and even though you shouldn't criticize a lot, but what is worse? Yes.
You said you will criticize without voting. Well, I see now you got our point.
I know you didn't even hear me. Please listen well. And you criticize without listening. I said you criticizing without voting without, like, you criticize and you don't vote. You want our country to develop without doing anything. And as you know, voting is the weapon, and in a war, the first one who took that weapon wins. So let me come back to my intervention. I said that the government has given you everything, given you the right to vote and choose by yourself who's going to guide you and fight for your rights. And by not voting, you just show them that you don't care. Like whoever want to be a president or something, he can be. But when things go wrong, you stand up and start criticizing. Or if simply you didn't care at the beginning, do not care at the end. Do not sleep while people are trying to change things and wake up and start mixing up things. Well, please, criticize your lack of citizenship, then come and talk to me. And what actually annoys me the most is that you don't want to vote and you want our country to develop. Well, please, just, dear members of opposition, I might think that you've forgotten what is logic by defending what you're defending now. Or actually just help us by being quiet and let us change the things and let us change the thing you couldn't do. Either way, why don't you be just like the people who don't vote? Just sleep as they do, and when we win this debate, wake up and tell the jury, oh God, we haven't debated yet. What a joke. Well, dear audience, stop letting others fool you. Come and stand in a line and vote. This is your nation, world's largest democracy, and it's your duty to vote and protect democracy. Citizens should not forget that. Or let me not blame you a lot. Let's give you an excuse. Let's say that you were silenced because you didn't like the candidates. So it's better not to vote than to choose the wrong one, right? But actually, than to choose the wrong one. But actually, I will give you a concrete example. How much our king was silent about the police, are you think? And as much as he was silent, as much as they've done whatever they want. Because what? Because they didn't, and as much as he was silent, they couldn't do anything. Yes. And when he showed his weapon, they couldn't do anything, so they ran away. It's not the case between the people who don't vote and the candidates. So as much as the people who don't vote stay silent, as much as the candidates will do whatever they want. Because why? Let's wonder a second. Because you didn't care. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So apparently, one of them thinks that voting blank is going to make a difference, right? One of them thinks that it's our duty to protect democracy when it's the government's duty. One of them right here thinks that making a POI is just a waste of time when we are in a debate trying to convince each other. And one of them wants me to give them a phone call, which I will do in a second. I realized that I needed some sort of idea to overcome this constant repetition that my dear opposition have been doing. And I thought about it and I decided, why not come up with some sort of hypothesis? You know what, and since you guys talked about food, and since I'm a stubborn person, you said that we are hungry and that we should leave food out of this. No, I'm actually gonna put food in this. So, let's act like after this debate, 2 of my teammates invite you over to have a nice family iftar. How does that sound? Now, for my hypothesis or experiments, I'm going to need 3 volunteers, 2 members of the jury if possible, if you could raise your hand as volunteers. Okay. Yes, go ahead.
Well, let me add something to your one of them, and one of them, which is you, is mixing up things. Well, you didn't even listen to us carefully. He hasn't said that POI is a wasting of time. So one of them, which is you should listen carefully.
Apparently, you guys had some lack of coordination because he actually did say so, and the audience is proof of that. Now, as I was saying, I'm going to need a volunteer of you guys here, so who wants to volunteer? Any? No volunteers? Okay, I guess. So, let's say we're all going back to my place to have iftar, and as soon as I put the house keys, let me find them real quick. As soon as I put the house keys in the door, we already see 2 of my teammates fighting over who's going to be tonight's chef. They're both promising us that they're going to be making this exquisite meal. But when iftar comes, oh, by the way, we did select, for example, Marwa as tonight's chef. So, and after she promised that this meal is going to be totally awesome, when we get to taste it, it's totally disgusting, even unedible, I would say so myself. So we share our opinions, telling her that, you know, her food is not really the best. Now, second day, Yasmin calls us up and says she wants to make up for yesterday, and this time we select her as tonight's chef. And whilst we're in the table, once again, the food is totally unedible and even disgusting. So, 3rd day, 4th day, 5th day, 6th day, week, months, they're all constantly inviting us over and over again to have this meal. So when it comes to it, we realize that whatever we do, the food's just gonna suck anyways. They call us for the 1,500th time this time, and 2 of you don't even come. You don't even want to be involved in it anymore. But you guys still show courtesy to come, which I thank you for. So whilst you're there, you start eating, and before we start eating, they say, who do you want to be tonight's chef? We look each other straight into the eyes and we decide none of them. Because we have had enough of this sort of cooking and whatnot. And you may think to yourself, as they said, if you can just become some sort of politician, or in this metaphor, a cook. You don't just become a politician. You don't just become a cook, but you are born a citizen. So as I was saying, when we get to eating once again, even though we didn't select any of them, the food is totally horrible. What are we gonna do? Not share our opinions about it once again? I'm sorry, but this is the position we are defending after all. And also when you come to think of it, you know, we have kept dealing with this sort of oppression, we have kept dealing with these sorts of lives and whatnot. And at the end, we decided not to select anyone. Think of it as some sort of resistance. So let me call you real quick. Hello? Government whip? Yes, I actually found the benefit. Us not voting makes it some sort of resistance, making it so that they can learn that there's been a lot of controversy in that country. And I wanted to give just a little example of the most random country of them all, Guatemala. 42% of the Guatemalans didn't vote during the last elections. 39.5% of them says they didn't vote because they had enough of those constant lies. So what are they gonna do? Vote blank? I'm sorry, but I don't want my vote thrown in the bin. Thank you.
So I suppose we can all agree that freedom of speech is only granted in a democratic environment. And as I already said, voting is the heart of democracy. So the moment you choose not to vote, you are killing democracy. You are killing the only system that provides you freedom of speech. So you no longer have the right to criticize or complain about the government's work or policy. And finally, you have to keep in mind that voting is more or less the most fundamental piece of political involvement. So complaining about something that was within your reach to change is being a complainer, a whiner, not politically woke.
First of all, I never called you stupid. I said that what you're saying is irrelevant, so I was attacking what you were saying, and I was not attacking you, unlike you who were saying that I have a lack of manners when one of you was saying that we were wasting his time, so that's kind of weird. Okay, so first of all, you said that our arguments are insensate, so you are clearly devalorizing freedom of speech, constitutions, articles, and fundamental rights. Second of all, you were just every single human being who is abided by the law from freedom of speech, and you actually are the reflection of the government in a nutshell. You are actually stopping every single person from saying whether they are voting against or not voting at all, which is thus criticism itself. So maybe what you should look at it is this way. You are giving attempts and you're giving freedom to men who once fell and got back up with greed. You are giving people who don't really care where the tax money is going. Thank you.
Dear Deputy Leader of Opposition, I clearly asked to your POI where I said that you must vote in order to protect democracy as citizens, and as you know, democracy is one of the ideals of our school. Then if you don't vote and to protect democracy, what are you doing here in our school? Anyways, here I'm about to say something that for sure wouldn't please our dear members of opposition. But anyways, the worst thing in life is plain criticism. What's better is a constructive one. Do you expect good criticism from people who have the chance to vote and vote what they want, but instead they stand down? These people are the same people who would promise you something but never do it. These people are the very reason why our country and government is underdeveloped. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have something to say, vote takes part. And here's another advice. Seems like I'm giving too many pieces of advice today. Hopefully it's all up in our dear members of opposition eyes. Don't stay in the nosebleeds and bark at the wind. The turf won't hear you. Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not gonna comment on that because you don't really make the difference between the leader of opposition and the opposition whip. And as for the solutions that you have come up with throughout this entire debate of hearing nonsense, okay, the first solution was you should vote for the most unpopular party. Excuse me. So just because you're unpopular, I'm gonna vote for you? No, you should vote for the people you believe in. That's the first. The second one was, oh, be a politician yourself. Excuse me, are you telling the entirety of the world's citizens to go ahead and become politicians? Then in your imaginary world, who is going to be citizens? Because as I know it, there's one politician and many citizens and not the other way around. And then, really throughout this debate, you haven't even been tackling the right motion. You're just going around and around. And it seems that you're intolerant to the word not voting. So I'm going to change it and say vote blank, as it means the exact same thing.
Well, first, I never said that that POI is a waste of time. I said that you are wasting my time because your POI has no sense. I already responded to it. So either your arguments have no meaning and have no sense, or either you are really trying to waste my time. And secondly, not voting doesn't make you a resistance. It only makes you a useless citizen. And actually, to you, yes, my friend already responded to you. We never said that you don't have the right to have an opinion. You'd be very wrong if you think that's what we're discussing. We're saying that of criticizing and complaining without voting is of course not illegal. It's of course not immoral or forbidden. But it's a harmful societal phenomenon. And just to respond to you, if you don't think you have the possibility or the capabilities to become a politician, I think that the public have the capability.
It doesn't matter what tense you say, wasting your time, you wasted my time. It doesn't matter what tense you use. You are still telling us that we are wasting your time with our POIs. Well, whatever. God knows how many times they said democracy, then vote. Democracy, then vote. Democracy, then don't vote. Democracy means a fundamental right, and the fundamental right is actually an article. So if me not voting is actually my personal freedom. So if my personal freedom is an article and it's called democracy, democracy is doing whatever I want, whenever I want, as long as it doesn't touch your personal freedom. So how does me not voting touch your personal freedom? Well, and you guys spoke about how in every country, whatever you tell the government, it gives you equipments and everything. God knows what country you live in because that is not Morocco. So,
43% of the population voted in the last elections in Morocco. 57% didn't vote. What do you think we should do about those voices?
Dear Deputy Leader of Opposition, I like the way you said, go politicians, go citizens, be a politician, right? You said it, go citizens, and you're not a citizen. Well, let me come back to my intervention. Well, to sum up, dear members of opposition, if you are used to not doing anything and things change around you, it's not the case for our beloved country. And what will, and actually I will say the best thing that was said by the governor, Bisou Boussan, who said that there's no difference between the vote of a great man and a commoner. Even if they are great people, if they fail to stand in a line and vote in the day of elections, they have no right to call themselves citizens anymore. So I think you got the point if you were sensitive enough. Thank you.
Do I even have to say anything anymore at this point? Do I even have to comment on the ridiculous contradictions that they have been dealing with their own selves in their entire debate? It's claiming that he did not say we wasted his time, then 2 seconds later saying that we wasted his time. I'm sorry, but at this point, I don't know. And also, you telling us that we said that we should become politicians when your teammate was the person who brought up the topic itself. Given an example of Morocco as democracy is yet not the best example, because as we know, Morocco is ranked 140 out of 180 in the democratic list after Wikipedia. So I don't even see why you guys are giving examples of democracy and are standing on this point and trying to act all tough when that's not really the truth. Thank you.